How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have a special guest. He wears many hats, so I'm going to let him explain all of his hats and all the things that he does, and say, what he's here for.
Well, thank you, Brandon. My name is Ken Newman. I'm, I suppose, relative to what we're talking about here, I'm a singer and a songwriter and a guitar player and a rock musician and all that stuff. But I do have a fair number of hats. If you could call it that, my day job, I produce corporate events,
cool.
Sales conferences and trade shows and meetings and internationally up until this thing that happened back in February of 2020. We were doing about 150. Yeah, it's a thing, just a little thing. 150 events. Yeah, just a tiny. Yeah. 150 events internationally a year. I had about 70 people who would work for me who were magicians and jugglers and comedians.
Wow.
And game show hosts and actors and improvisers and what have you, all doing different, they call it infotainment, kind of a marriage and entertainment. And so we were cranking along, quite honestly, at a rate where I was about to say, I think I've reached that magic age. I might be able to kind of like hang it up, and then just live off the back, the profits on the back end. Yeah. Spend more time doing music, traveling around the world with my girlfriend, and then some bat got sick, and the next thing you know, the word bat shit comes to mind. But so there we were. So I then had to transition and modify my business a little bit so that I wasn't just doing live events and started going back to stuff I used to do, which was on camera. Producing and then marrying that to like rock and roll music videos and selling those to corporations. Then I also happen to work professionally as a magician, which was part of what I would do with my own company. We would do, and I was traveling all around the world. I mean, all over Europe, the United States, Middle East, doing magic shows.
Wow.
And that kind of dried up too. But it turns out you can do magic online. In fact, I have something that if there's time permitting, I'll show you. It's a little card thing that I've been working on.
This would be a first. It would be a first here. So.
And then the other thing is associated with music. I started a charity about 5-6 years ago called Blanket the Heart, and we actually produced a double vinyl album. There it is, right there.
Oh, there we go.
Featuring contributions from Fantastic Negrito, who you probably know is a multi-Grammy Award winner. Rainbow Girls, Coffis Brothers, myself was on the track, Whisker Man, Goodnight Texas, John Craigie, Tim Bloom of Mother Hips, Mickelson, Stone Fox, a bunch of other bands that most of whom, except for Negrito, came to our studio in Mill Valley, recorded a track, and all of that ended up on here, and all of it benefits the charity that I do, which distributes these packages of supplies to people living on the streets.
Nice.
Emergency blankets, socks, gloves, hats, condoms, feminine hygiene supplies, a resource directory that shows places to get free food, shelter, and whatnot. All throughout the city of San Francisco. We've given out about 9,000 or 10,000 of those in the last 6 years. So that's in a rather large nutshell what I kind of do.
Well, kudos to you. You already spoke my language of love, which is vinyl, so I'm gonna have to go grab one now after this is over with.
Well, if you look over my right shoulder back there,
yeah,
I had a splurge because I don't treat myself too often I'm not like into collectible cars.
I feel that.
You know. But when I finally got my test pressing of my album, the one that we're going to talk a little bit more about, What Am I Afraid Of? They said the test pressings, and I had to get on. Seriously, I had to get on Facebook and said, "Okay, I got these test pressings. Anybody have a turntable? And I'll come over to your house with a bottle of wine and the album so we can listen to it." And people were like really cool. They're like, "Oh yeah, great, man, come on over." Well, it was great. I got it in front of some really good people and with some really good sound systems, and got some great kind of impromptu, reactions. And then I decided to go out and buy a Riga plain art turntable from Brick and Mortar, a local guy about half a mile from here who was thrilled to sell it to me, and then I came to a very uncomfortable realization, however. Back maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, you could go to a garage sale and somebody had a box of records, and you were like 50 cents, 25 cents. Now those same people, that same box, $25, $30.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
This Dark Side of the Moon, this is collectible. It's got scratches on it that go clear through to the other side. And it's collectible.
I know that. I'm gonna give a shout out to my dad. We used to listen to a ton of classic rock growing up,
Oh,
and
no,
I've
cool.
always loved the Boston self-titled record, and he had it, and I asked him.
Wow.
He
Oh,
has
wow.
it. He used to collect them. So I asked him. I said, I don't know if you want to part with this, but I would love to have it. And he said, absolutely. So you wind up giving it to me, and it's like, it's not. I mean, obviously the album is a little beat up, but the album, like the actual art and stuff is a little beat up, but I mean the actual record itself, it plays just as beautifully as I remember it to be. So I feel very blessed that he was able to gift that to me. But I have seen some old classic records that have just
Wow.
gone straight through the roof. Yeah, it's
Oh yeah,
insane.
I mean, like things particularly like there's a Blind Faith that's got that little girl with the airplane, which I
Yeah.
have. It's in New York. It's at my my sister's house in boxes. There's thousands of albums back there that at some point I'm gonna have to work my way to getting out to California. But I have some stuff that I think is probably worth some serious money.
Oh,
But I'll tell you, the first
100%.
time, not just my own album, but when I actually I went to some local places and I've got a couple of hundred now. I splurged, but I found some albums I haven't listened to in a while, popped them on the turntable, and it was, oh my God, there really is a difference.
Yeah.
You kind of get numb to, because there was the CD transition, and it was hard to hear that difference unless you had good speakers, good
Headphones. Yeah.
amplifier,
Yeah.
headphones, whatever. But after a while, you got used to CD sound kind of like albums. You were fine.
Yeah.
But MP3s, after a while, you just thought, yeah, they sound okay. And I just literally did an A/B test with an MP3, and Spotify feed
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
the track of an album with like, oh my God, I'm listening to it's like the Velveeta version of Cheese.
It's night and day,
Oh
right?
man, it was practically moved me to tears. Plus, you listen to the side of the album, then you got to get off your lazy ass and
And
flip
flip
it over.
it.
You know, it's like good. So I get some exercise.
Yeah,
Well,
you're gonna. Well, again, Ken, I'm gonna have to pick up both because like I said, I have a lot of records, and I'm always trying to continue to add to my collection. So, I
I'd be
mean,
very happy to give you such a deal if you get the two.
oh,
I'll make sure
thank
that
you.
they'll go out tomorrow. You just let me know.
There we go. Well, Ken, we're going to get into some of the questions in terms of, how did you start out? Obviously, you've been playing music for, I imagine, a good amount of time, but,
Yeah.
who got you started into music? Who kind of inspired you to get involved in, obviously playing guitar, singing, that nature,
Sure.
and then who kind of
Sure.
influences you more currently in terms of your, influences?
Well, thanks for asking. You know, again, like so many kids, I mean, I was 12 years old, and my mom and dad said, what do you want to learn? And they were crossing their fingers that I wouldn't say drums,
Yeah, as most parents do, right?
and I said guitar, and they were like, "Phew, okay, great."
Dodged
And
a
so,
bullet, yeah.
my mom and dad, they worked it out for me to take some guitar lessons, and then they got me God, I think it was a tempo amplifier. It was probably like 10 watts and about that
Wow.
big,
Yeah, I know
solid
yep.
state, and a harmony guitar, 6-string electric, cherry
Wow.
red. Wish I still had it. It was really adorable. And then I think I got an acoustic shortly after that. I got a Hofner, maybe 12-string, which after a while I was
Oh.
like, I can't keep this in tune, so I made it a 6. But I stuck with the guitar lessons. I worked in a music store. I was
Oh, very
fortunate
cool.
enough after high school, from the time I was in 10th grade, and then through summers in college, worked at a place called Samsondale Music Center, about like 10 minutes from my house
Very
in
nice.
Haverstraw, upstate New York. And there were two jazz guys that ran the place, and then my guitar teacher was also teaching there. But I got inundated with music, and it was, the jazz guys would listen to me, track Led Zeppelin 2, and they'd go, yeah, we get it, but we also want you to hear Miles, and we want you to hear, oh God, Herbie Hancock, and we want you to hear this, and we want you to hear that, and Maynard Ferguson, and listen to old Louis Armstrong and Al Hurt and stuff. And
Yeah.
so they just saturated me with some jazz stuff, and I would get them to listen to rock stuff. And I developed a little bit of a kind of just a language about music,
Yeah.
and an appreciation for a pretty broad range of music. And then going away to college, naturally, I was a very nerdy kid. Went to college at 16. Was a chemistry major, pre-med student.
Oh,
Didn't
very cool.
not exactly a sexual threat as far as women went. And I discovered that with an acoustic guitar, you sing some sensitive, folk songs and stuff, and it might have some benefits. Didn't work for me, but at least I learned to play guitar. So I was doing the coffee house thing in college and playing during the summer, you know, and for the high school kids that would come up for the pre-college summers, and it was great. And I, of course, actually, even before then, now that I think of it, I would wheel my electric guitar, and then because I worked at the music store, they let me borrow these big Marshall stacks.
Oh,
And so
very cool. Yeah.
And I wheel it across the street to my best friend Ira's basement or garage, where he had his drum set. So he and I were like a two-man band making a racket. And then we, you know, incorporated, oh God, a young kid, David Spitz, I think it was about 4'2", hair down to here, played a killer bass. And then we had, I can't remember, I remember the name, Jimmy MacArthur, I think, played keyboards. And so we created this like ad hoc band. And I would do the rock and roll thing as a kid. And then, as I said, folk stuff in college. Then when I got out of college, I mostly just kind of played around a little bit, but to be quite honest, once I started acting, when I got into acting and got back, because that was what I graduated, I ultimately shifted from pre-med to acting and did a lot of that, a lot of theater, some film, TV, and, you know, commercials and what have you. Then I started my production company. And I was also, before that, had done some educational theater. So I would play some acoustic guitar as part of that. Yeah. But once I got, you know, into the corporate work, with the exception of a few, you know, big things that we did for our corporate audiences, I wasn't playing a lot of guitar, and bit by bit, it kind of just fell by the wayside. Then about 12 years ago, I was asked to front a cover band. Didn't even have I don't think I had I didn't have a guitar at that point, now that I think about it. And so I, you know, I could sing. I've always been a good singer. So they gave me the long list of songs they wanted to do, and we started doing it. Then I got a guitar, started playing rhythm again, found another teacher, started kind of getting my chops back up, and then went a little crazy with pedals and guitars. And because I had more money than sense, you know, I started building up my collection and playing more and more. The guys in the band didn't really have the time to play as much as I wanted to. So I reached out to the drummer to go back to the idea of just me and a drummer. Said, okay, look, the Black Keys did it, the White Stripes did it. What the hell, let's do it. So we started doing it. We called ourselves Berkeley Bronx. He was from Berkeley. I was from the Bronx. And we worked up all these tunes. I started working a little bit with a looper pedal, octavizers, pitch shifters and stuff, and created a pretty fat sound for two people. Then got this wonderful bass player. We rounded it out a bit. And at that point, probably about 8 years or so ago, I decided to start writing. I'd never really written songs to speak of. I was doing covers. And my son had a horrible experience. We all did. There was a young boy that had died at really early, committed suicide. And I just remember thinking about that a lot. And that happened to be one of the first songs that popped into my head. And I wrote it and didn't do anything more with it than just occasionally play it at a gig acoustically. And then an idea for another song came up. And then my guitar teacher said, well, your assignment is to write 2 songs next week using the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 minor. Or the next, you know, the next exercise was the 1, the 4, the 3 minor, the 7, you know, whatever. Yeah. And so I started doing that. And because somebody essentially put a gun to my head in the way of an assignment, it's like, okay, you got to do this in a week. You don't get an extension on this term paper. I started doing that. So I was kind of forced into it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had a friend who had an album that I really liked. His producer, I thought, did a brilliant job. I said, who was he? He gave me the guy's name. I called him up and said, look, I got a handful of songs. I'd love to have you produce them. He went, send them to me, because if I'm going to listen to them over and over and over and over again, I'm going to make sure it's something I like before I commit to it. I was like, really impressed me. So I sent him some rough tracks. He called me back. He said, yeah, we got stuff to work with. And he turned out to be an amazing producer, produced both Blanket the Homeless and my own album. He's more of a collaborator, I would say. He just really didn't let me sit on my laurels. You know, he's one of those guys that said, yeah, there's a lot there, but it needs a bridge and it needs another verse. And I'm not sure about not going to the minor here. You might want to do this. And I'm like, oh,
he's really critiquing you. Yeah.
Yeah, we're really collaborating. He's not just saying, it sounds great. Let's
just record it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciated that. He helped me grow immeasurably as a songwriter. And he's become one of my dearest friends. So that kind of gets you through the arc of my dubious career.
No, I find a lot of similarities in how I also play guitar as well. So like growing up, like that was kind of similar. Like I got that really piece of shit, you know, like guitar, like set, you know, you get the little shitty amp, you get the little shitty guitar, you know. And at first I didn't give a shit about guitar. I was just like, whatever. It's, you know, like it is what it is. Like my sister was into other stuff, and my parents were like, "Oh, you should find like a hobby and stuff." So very similarly to you, I was like,
Right.
well, I was like, I don't know, like one of my old dad's workers like played like in a hair metal band, and he was just like, "Oh, you should play guitar," and then I was just like, "Ah, what the hell? I'll pick up the guitar," and then wind up playing guitar probably around the same age as you, like 12, 13, and I've been playing ever since. So I feel, and then I also, funnily enough, my first guitar teacher were also jazz guitar teachers as well. They went to Berkeley.
For you, that's a great place to start.
They knew what they were talking about, and I used to school them on some of the stuff that I was listening to, whether it be like, you know, in that range, and they would be like, "Oh, you should check out this jazz artist, or you should check out this person." And then I was like, "Jazz? I don't like jazz, what the hell?" You know? And then I wind up falling in love with it, and now I love jazz because it's just so interesting, and
it really
every artist is so different, you know?
I remember the first time I was in college, and I didn't really, I mean, I had a lot of experience with jazz. I gotten turned on to Bitches Brew. So I'd heard, the work that Miles was doing when he got more experimental with McLaughlin. And then my college roommate said, "We're going to go to Bailey Hall. There's a band playing that I want you to see." And I said, "Who is he?" He says, "It's the Mahavishnu Orchestra with John McLaughlin."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I went, "What's it like?" And he went, "Let's just go."
That's how you know.
Yeah. So I'm sitting like in the sweet spot, about 15 rows dead center.
Wow.
And McLaughlin comes out all in white, and Jan Hammer is there on his portable keyboard, and Billy Cobham is on drums, and Jerry Goodman from the Flock is on violin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of an interesting lineup. I said, well, let's see what happens. And McLaughlin gets up, and he's really soft spoken, short hair, very serene looking, and he puts his hands together. He says to the audience, he says, "Look, all music begins in silence. I would like for a moment of silence." And there's a bunch of people going like, "Oh yeah, cool, man, rock and roll, whatever." But he held it until you could hear like the air conditioning humming.
Wow.
Like it was really like dead quiet. And then they start to play, but you don't hear anything. He's starting to play the guitar, but they hadn't pushed the fader up yet.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted. So he's playing, and everybody's playing, and Cobham's not playing the drums yet. And then bit by bit, almost like a memory of a sound, you start hearing.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden the drums come in. I'm getting goosebumps now remembering it, and it was 40 plus years ago. And then it just gets louder and louder and louder. And I remember reaching over and grabbing my friend's leg, and he looks at me with that wonderful shit-eating grin that says, "Right?"
But it's true. Like that seems so.
I was absolutely. I'd never heard a guitar played like that. I'd never heard a band that tight. I mean, where like every single 64th note was matched by Cobham on the drums and Goodman on the violin, and I would like, how is this technical virtuosity even possible?
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at their instruments. McLaughlin's looking straight up at the sky. I literally, I mean, I'm right back there. I mean, I feel it all over again. And that got me into a deep dive into that kind of playing. I got to see Dimiola play. But it turns out, I found out, because he and I are roughly the same age. When I saw him, I thought he was like in his 20s, 30s, because nobody could be that. He was 18 years old. He opened for Taj Mahal at Cornell when I was there in like 73 or something. I saw him, and he was already a monster, and much more on the electric side, playing a lot of fusion stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. I get it.
It's that like
really a happy marriage.
Yeah, it's that I totally feel you on that, of having that like kind of like almost like spiritual kind of thing, where you're at a show and you're like, holy shit, like this is really happening. You're in that moment, like everything. Yep. I don't know. I can probably speak on more so like in that moment, like it just everything stops and all you hear is just like you and the band, and it's like it feels weird. It's like you guys, like everybody dissipates from the room, and it's just you and that band. Like that's I totally get that. That's such a weird experience, and I've had it happen a couple different times, like fortunately, but it's quite an experience. So if anybody has experienced that, like certainly knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's something that music does that very few other art forms can do. I mean, I've experienced it in the theater, when everything is just coming together, the script, the actors, the whatnot, because I've directed a lot of plays and I've acted in a lot of plays, and it's on those rare occasions. I saw Death of a Salesman in New York with George C. Scott and Teresa Wright and James Ferrantino and Harvey Keitel when they were really young. And there were those moments where I had like complete tunnel vision, where I felt like, oh my God, this story is unfolding and I have no sense of where I am other than completely invested in this moment. And, you know, the arts can do that. And, you know, a few other things can. They can really just take you out of your world into another world. And when it happens, it's thrilling as hell.
No, totally get that, and that's really awesome. Obviously, I want to speak on the fact that you were doing acting and stuff like that. So do you find that taking some of that energy as being like an actor and performing in theater, do you kind of take some of that energy and formulate it into, you know, what you do as in, you know, more of a rock and roll sort of fashion where, you know, when you're performing live, I'm sure you just have this sort of like, you know, live energy that you try to channel through, you know, obviously being an actor?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's something that I realized and I could just draw the parallel. When I started to do magic, you know, I was looking at all these people that were so gifted at it, that could do these knuckle busting card manipulations and all. And the guy that was teaching me said, you're going to be in a specific way far more successful because you're an actor, because you're a storyteller. If you figure that the magic, whatever you're doing with the magic, is simply an adjunct to what you do when you tell your story, then people are going to be really moved or entertained or just completely fooled by what you're doing, because the story is where they're invested. And I realized, and it's a great question, because I realized that as a musician, when I am most successful is when I think about, and I know the stuff that I write, you know, if you've heard it, you'll know that it really is story based. It's, you know, the song "What Am I Afraid Of" is really about the news and about how we're inundated with things. And, you know, it's almost inevitable that it's going to engender my own emotional response to it as I'm singing it. And the song "I Can't Breathe" about Eric Garner, you know, dying chokehold on Staten Island, that was written because I was really affected by what I saw. And the story, you know, if when I'm in the zone and I'm doing it the way I think I should be doing it, and I'm simply using the guitar and my voice to communicate the story in a way I might tell somebody the story, then it's the most effective it can be, you know. And I think when I lose that, when I get lost in the, oh, damn it, I blew that guitar, that chord change, or trying to do something really complicated and getting wrapped up in the minutia of guitar or the sound or the balance with the other singers, you know, you lose that and you're out of the zone. And then even though you don't necessarily think it's perceptible, the audience somehow feels like that connection was broken. You know, it's like suddenly, you know, the image is glitching a little bit because you don't have bandwidth. It's the same thing. You know, you feel that lack of connection. I know on the flip side, if I'm in the theater and I get the sense that the actor is self-conscious for a moment, or there's a momentary thing where somebody goes up on a line or something shifts, you're torn out of that suspension of disbelief, right? You're torn out of the world of the play and you're like, oh, I'm watching actors. You know, and eventually they'll pull you back into it and then you're back again. And I think the challenge for me, and the thing that I need to keep remembering, is that I am simply trying to tell a story, and all of the noise and the guitar and everything is just a vehicle for that. I mean, I've watched incredible people. I watched Trent Reznor live at, you know, with Nine Inch Nails do that so well. You know, just real, I mean, with this wall of sound and lights and an incredibly complicated amount of tech, and he's still, it's like, it's him. He's right there. You know, the same thing with like Radiohead or so many other bands that I really love, you know, and Bowie was just brilliant at that. No matter what the character was, no matter what he was doing, he had this way to just kind of like zero in on you and tell you, this is where I'm at right now. This is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's the challenge that we all have as artists, right?
I think it's that combination of like transcending as well as like just, you know, knowing that you're trying to hone in to the audience. Like when I see a show and when I see, like, you know, obviously bands and stuff play, like I'm not necessarily caring about if they hit all the notes or if they're, you know, going for it. Like if there's a band that has that energy and you can feel like that push and pull of having like the crowd kind of being interactive and stuff, I think that's way more important to me than, because like you could have a band that just is like insane, like, you know, obviously from front to back, where like, you know, they're playing like notes and they're like, the drummer is just like in the pocket and their bass player is like same in the pocket too. And that's great, don't get me wrong, love seeing those types of shows, but there's something special about seeing a band where like you can feel that connection, you know, that they have with everybody in the crowd. And it's like, it's almost like somebody grabbing you and you're like, oh, I feel that, so like we're connecting in that level. So
yeah, that's really well said. Because there are rare occasions like this one Nine Inch Nails concert I saw where there was both of it. You know, that both of it, the and Radiohead too. Now that I think of it, you know, and a lot of concerts that I've seen actually, truth be told, where all of the production pieces and the rigorous rehearsal and is there, and the performances are spot on. But conversely, having seen Nirvana and Kurt Cobain when he was like just screaming and not even coming close to the right notes, stuff, and but you were still just like so swept up in this incredible energy and this the explosive power that he had on stage, and the fact that it would like, fine, if I listened to the board, a board feed afterwards, to be like, wow, yeah, that was kind of like, that's not what I heard.
Yeah,
what I felt. But in the moment you go like, who gives a shit? I mean, I'm just like, I'm jumping out of my skin, because he's not phoning it in. I mean, he is absolutely 100% committed to it. So yeah, you're right.
He's given the 110%, which we love to see. So totally get that. I do want to mention, Ken, I did listen to some of the album, and I was really like invested, just because, like I said, grew up listening to classic rock, so I felt like a lot of nostalgia, almost like listening to some of your music, and that's really cool. So I wanted to give kudos for that, and I'll leave links in the description to go give it a listen. But speaking on that question, Ken, for people who haven't heard of Ken Newman and are finding out about him through this interview, which much appreciated, what song would you recommend to a new listener to check out to kind of give you an idea of what Ken Newman is?
I think I mean, I would want to say two. I mean, I would say What Am I Afraid Of, which is the title track. It wasn't originally the title track, but the more I looked at all the songs on the album, I realized that there was an element of fear and the things that we are afraid of and challenged by, that was kind of almost an umbrella over many of the songs on the album. So What Am I Afraid Of has a lot of the kind of the feeling of it, and also some of the production elements that I feel like are closest to what I'm really interested in conveying. And then the other one might be the last track on the album, which is an acoustic version of I Can't Breathe. I did a kind of a more up-tempo version earlier on, full studio production thing, and I played it for somebody who said that she loved it, but she felt that the story was getting a little bit lost in the in all the production. She said, why don't you do it just and just guitar and voice? And I actually started performing it that way, and I realized, wow, she might be right, because people were really responding to it far more emotionally than they were to the rock version of it. I mean, that was kind of angrier, and the acoustic was just sadder, more tragic. And I think it conveyed a truer sense of how I felt about it, and about just the sadness of the whole experience for so many people, and that have been affected by it. And it also was used, both the first song and the last song, ironically, were both used for the music videos. The first two music videos that we released were What Am I Afraid Of and I Can't Breathe, which in the video form was called It Stops Today. And I would encourage either listening to those tracks, or even just looking for the videos, which are on YouTube and have also been submitted to a whole bunch of film festivals, and have actually won quite a few awards. So
very good.
They've resonated with a lot of people, I think.
No, certainly. And I listened to I Can't Breathe, I watched the music video, and you can't help but feel that kind of well of emotions about certain things, that have happened, over the course of, a couple different years and stuff. So, definitely felt moved to go check that out, and I'll leave links below to go give it a watch and a listen, because it is important. I feel like I've definitely talked about it on a couple different episodes of this show. So I think it's as a person of colors, I do feel like that's important to talk about, and it's something that we should have more of a conversation about. So definitely good on you, Ken, for doing that. And obviously guys, you can check it out below. But taking it up a notch, Ken, what have you been listening to lately? You mentioned Spotify earlier, so what are the sorts of artists you're listening to on a daily basis now?
Well, for some reason, I have just gotten, I always kind of like Nine Inch Nails. I didn't really think about it that much, and then for some reason, I just got somewhat obsessed with them, and of all things, with Black Keys. I started. Nice. It's an interesting kind of a thing, because I've got a real love for blues-based rock and roll, and I started doing this thing where I would using my Amazon Echo, you know, and I'm afraid if I say Alexa too loud, she's going to wake up right now. But Alexa, set the alarm for 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. to the Black Keys. And it'll be like song. Okay. So, and I find myself listening to 12, 15 of them in a row. And I don't say next. I don't bail on the song. And I'm like, damn, it's just like, they're just real strong hooks and real interesting sounds. And, and similarly with Tom Petty, I've always felt that way about him. I've done a similar thing where I'll listen to 2 hours of his music in the morning. And obviously I was affected by guys like Springsteen and whatnot. But my son, oh my God, I'm going to draw a blank now, and it's really frustrating because right in the moment I can't remember their name. But yeah, I don't want to run around looking for it. But my son knows the kind of music I like, and he actually sent me something that was very reminiscent of the Black Keys. It had a very similar. Cool. There's no question that whoever these guys are, I think there were 2 of them, maybe 3. For some of the recordings, gave a deep listen to that and went, yeah, that's the sound I like. I've also really been interested with all of the various directions that Jack White has gone.
From
the White Stripes on all the way to his, Blunderbuss, and everything that he's done is just, really pushing the envelope a little bit about what he can do with the guitar. And I've just always been fascinated by his sonic landscape. Has always been something that's really been thrilling to me. Oh gosh. I don't know. I tend to kind of like do this thing where I'll just put on Spotify and I'll just say, all right, play what's interesting, and I'll listen to stuff and it'll be like, oh my God, that's great. And unfortunately, by the time I get there, I've missed it, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
There's just so much really interesting music coming out. I mean, people just, sitting in their bedrooms, and cranking out. And my God, I think about when I was a kid, I could tell you who all the bands were. I mean, I knew who was recording.
That's my constant struggle.
I was on top of everything. I mean, I knew what MC5 was up to. I knew what the Fugs were up to. I knew what the Mothers were up to. I knew what all those guys were up to. Somebody had an album coming out. I was working in the music store, and I tear open the box. I was one of the first people to touch the album when it was released. So I really didn't know what was going on. Now I'm shit out of luck. Man. No way I can stay on top of all of this stuff.
Oh, I know.
A dear friend who I call one of the guardians of my rock and roll soul, and he listens to, I think it's KPFA. It's a college station over in the East Bay, close to where I live. And he's always sending me a track. He goes, listen to this. I'm going to see these guys. They're going to be playing at whatever, this small club. You should check them out. So he'll drag me out to some band I've never heard of.
Sure,
and yeah. Damn, these guys are great. Similarly, a friend of mine would take me to the Fillmore. He turned me on to Television, who I, somehow missed and during a certain period of time, I was totally into them. Another friend introduced me to Wilco years and years ago.
Wilco's great, yeah.
Wilco is by far one of my favorite bands right now. I mean, they just, I've gotten to know Jeff and his son Spencer. I ran into them in Chicago at the United. Cool. And we got to chat for quite a while, and so they've become acquaintances. I wouldn't say close friends, but I bought Jeff's book, which I strongly recommend to any singer-songwriters out there. It is called How to Write One Song, and it's by Jeff Tweedy. It's a small book, and he gives you all these tricks and all these exercises that he uses to help him write. And I'm telling you right now, it is one of the best single books I've ever read on writing of any type, any kind of creative writing. It's really about tricking your brain into getting into the sort of the creative meat of like where you are without censoring yourself. It's a brilliant book. How to Write One Song. Yeah, it's a brilliant piece of work.
Yeah, you definitely, I feel like, run the gambit of a couple different artists. I will recommend two to you. One, I just had, now I remember. It's called The Cold Stairs. I've had them on on the channel before. They're kind of like a blues rocky sort of band. Great band. Shouts to them. They're awesome.
All right. You got me. I already wrote it down.
There we go. And the other one, they're a little bit more on the heavier side, but it's a 2-piece band. They're called 68, the number 6 and 8.
Sweet.
They're very cool. Very interesting. I would probably say the most interesting thing about them is their vocalist. He used to be in this like super hardcore band, and then after that kind of fell out, he started this new band with just the drummer. It's called 68. It's like kind of like more on that like hard rock blues kind of vibe going on. Very cool, very cool stuff. They use a lot of pedals and stuff.
Cool.
Very interesting band.
Definitely going to check that out as soon as we get done with this.
There we go. Well, guys, if you have any other recommendations for us, drop them in the comments. I'm sure we'll give them a listen. But the next question I have for you, Ken, another fun one. If you could pick a song to cover, what would it be?
Oh man, let me think about that for a second. You know, I recently did a thing. Well, not recently. When Tom Petty died, I happened to have my guitar in a really weird tuning. It was a tuning that Stephen Stills used back in the day. He had learned it when he was in Buffalo Springfield. I think it's called E or D modal. It's every string is E except for the B string. And the song Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, 4 and 20, a lot of songs, Love the One You With, were all done in that tuning.
Wow.
You know, so you got like all these two note figures that you could do chording up and down the neck, and you get this great drone dulcimer kind of sound.
Wow.
So it's a really fat sound. My guitar happened to be tuned that way, the day I found out that Tom Petty had passed. And I covered Running Down a Dream, but I did it in this really slow kind of open tuning, almost dobro style guitar thing or dulcimer style thing. And I've been thinking a lot about different songs that I would like to do in that way. And I don't have a specific song in mind yet, but I want to, I think what I want to do is a Metallica song in that tuning.
Okay.
Yeah, because I've always loved Metallica. I'm a huge Hetfield fan. I just love the way he writes. I love the way the band plays. I've seen them a bunch of times. I mean, that's a band that is just tighter than hell, and really reaches the audience. Last time I saw them in Vegas, they set up in the round. It was an arena style. Everybody on wireless instruments with standing mics all the way around the periphery of the.
Wow!
No matter where they were, they could sing. On a solid mic, and then so they were constantly playing to different parts of the house.
That's great.
And it was incomprehensible to me how tight they were. I mean, it was just, and then just how much pure joy they had in performing. I mean, Hetfield was like, said, I can't believe we've been doing this shit for 40 years. I can't believe you still come out. I'm blown away that all of you are here. I mean, it's just so much gratitude and so much heart.
Yeah.
And, and I love their music so much. And I haven't heard them covered a lot. I've heard them cover other people's stuff. I heard them cover some Black Sabbath that was pretty, and Motorhead tunes. But I've been kind of looking through their catalog and figuring out, okay, which one of their songs do I want to do in this kind of alternate tuning and completely mess with the phrasing and the tempo. It's just my favorite, because being in a cover band, I mean, I've always kind of had a love-hate relationship with my own voice, because and my voice teacher actually said that to me once. She goes, one of these days we have to figure out what your voice is, because because being an actor, I learned how to mimic other people's voices, doing impressions and doing vocal impressions as a singer. So I can sing like Bon Scott, and quite convincingly. I mean, we did covers of some, AC/DC stuff, and people swore I was using some kind of pedal processor on my voice.
Yeah.
And Led Zeppelin, and Leonard Cohen and Iggy Pop and all these, Johnny Cash. We try to sound like them, so much so that I sacrifice my own voice in the process.
Sure.
So, so there's a tendency that sometimes when you cover something, to just cover every aspect of it, get the guitar sound right, get the note, the lead break note for note, and even get the vocal part right. And it's fun to do that as an exercise, but for me, covers are much more interesting even if it takes you like the first 30 seconds of a song to figure out, holy shit, that's a cover. I mean, I did a full-on punk version of a Neil Diamond song, and people had no idea what it was until I was about a third of the way into it. They were like, God, that's real. Oh shit, is that Neil Diamond? That's kind of what I hope this one. So yeah, that's a very long answer to a very simple question.
No, I appreciate it. It's coming from, a person who has been in a cover band. Like, I feel like that's very methodical. I appreciate it. Much kind of like you, I'm in the same boat. I do like asking the question just because I feel like it's a fun, thought-provoking question. But
it is.
When I think about covers, I'm always thinking about if I haven't heard this band before and they're able to cover a song that I know and they're able to make it their own, that's for me. That I can't say I'll be a fan of your band if you can convincingly make a cover your own, you know.
That is a great criteria. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but on my album, What Am I Afraid Of, I don't know if it's the next to the last track. It might be. I can't even remember at this point. There's a song on there called The Fish Song. Yeah, it is the next to the last track. And it was written by this wonderful singer-songwriter, E.G. Phillips, who's a San Francisco guy. And every year he has a thing called E.G. Fest, where he has his, he invites people who are singer-songwriters to cover one of his songs for his birthday.
Very cool.
And it's a great concert. It's a birthday show.
Yeah.
And, you get to hear just wildly different interpretations of his music. And his stuff is pretty straightforward. It's kind of folk jazz influenced. It's quirky. He's got a very unusual style of singing and songwriting. And this song was just very simple acoustic guitar and voice. And I did it, with a little bit more of a rock feel. And then my producer completely deconstructed it and turned it into this kind of, it's got elements of Pink Floyd to it, and just a lot of looping and really weird sound effects and stuff, and shifts in dynamic. So and it's gotten a lot of he loved it. I mean, he heard it and he went, "Oh man, I can't believe what you did to that song." So it really was a radical departure from his interpretation of it when he originally wrote it. And to me, that's what made it so exciting to do that. It was almost, in part, it was fun for me, but it was also a gift to him. Look, here's this wonderful thing, this form that you gave us, and here's how we just kind of took it apart and put it back together again. And I think that's one of the greatest things you can do for another artist and for yourself.
I think it just makes it more interesting and it makes it more engaging. I think I enjoy it more if it's just kind of more out of the box and obviously plays to the strengths of their band. Like whoever it is, whoever covers a song, if they know their lane and they're able to kind of do it well, then that's kudos to them. I feel like that's difficult, especially with the mass amount of songs that are out now. It's really interesting.
To see. I mean, I know a lot of musicians. There was a podcast I just watched recently. They were talking about so many musicians who have just such a strong aversion to covers. It's like, no, I only do my own material. And I want to say, well, okay, I appreciate that, but Luciano Pavarotti had no problem covering other people's stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Sinatra did a reasonably good job of it. It's a different thing. Tony Bennett did a reasonably good job. So it's for me, because nobody knows who the hell Ken Newman is. If I do, I'm not going to just force feed them my songs and say, here, listen to this at the exclusion of all else. There's a huge library of beautiful music out there. Yeah. So if I do a convincing version, where I use whatever abilities I have as a storyteller to tell the story channeled through somebody else's melody, and John Prine is a perfect example.
Sure, yeah.
All you have to do is get out of the way of his writing and just do it, and people are going to be moved by it because the writing is so damn brilliant, and the song construction is so damn brilliant. You just deliver it. So if you do that, if you do 4 or 5 songs like that, and you've now got the audience with you, then that's a perfect time to turn around and say, hey, I really want to try something. This is something I'm working on. Give it a listen. Now you've already won their hearts and their minds, and they're gonna at least invest a little bit of time in your song, and then take it back and do something else. And I found that to be a really successful formula. Playing in places where people otherwise wouldn't pay attention to you.
Sure.
You do a couple of songs in a row where they stop watching the game or they stop texting or whatever, and they go like, "Oh my God, I love this Tom Petty tune, or I love this Prine tune, or I love this Johnny Cash tune, or I love that whatever." And then when you feel like you've got them, try something of your own, and then they may come up and say afterwards, like, "God, that song of yours was great," and they wouldn't have even listened to it if you started it first. Right?
Yeah, no, certainly. I've definitely seen
manipulation.
It is a little bit, but honestly, I mean, people have that shortened attention span. So I feel like, if you can try to rope people in as early as possible, I mean, that's what you got to do as an artist. I feel.
Man, agree with you.
The next question I have for you, Ken, if you were to pick somebody to collaborate with, whether it be a guest feature on an up-and-coming Ken Newman record or a producer you'd like to work with, I know you like your producer, but if there was some dream person you'd want to work with, who would be your choices?
Wow, that's I would love to work. If Trent Reznor would take my phone call. I'd work with that son of a bitch anytime, anywhere, for under any circumstances. I mean, there's a lot about him beyond the fact that I really respect him as a musician. It's a story. He was involved in something. I had gotten back in the early days of Twitter. There was a young kid who needed a heart transplant. His sister found out about me on Twitter because I was a little bit of a Twitter star way back when it started, because I had this character called The Expert. And it was an acting exercise that I did where this guy from New York with a heavy New York accent was doing all these 30-second video clips about, the insanity of Twitter and of social media in general, and then political stuff and whatnot. And bit by bit, I got more and more involved in political things and kind of social interaction. And I was trying to help raise money for this kid to get this heart transplant. And his sister was a CNN correspondent, and I believe still is. And she had found out about me. She asked me to post something about it. I did. We were trying to raise some money. I went on vacation. I came back, and somehow they had raised close to $500,000 to $750,000. And I found out that it happened because Trent Reznor was on tour with Nine Inch Nails and Jane's Addiction. He found out about the story. I don't know if he found out about it through what I had done or through just several channels.
Sure.
But he offered up to his audience, anybody that wants to come see the show, who's already got a ticket, if you add $1,000 to your ticket price, you can watch the show from on stage and have dinner with the band. And he figured a few people would sign on, and so many people signed on they had to extend the tour. I mean, literally, it was an avalanche of people that said, "Hell yeah, I'll do that." $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, and all the money went to the charity.
That's awesome.
And sadly, the kid got too sick to be able to be, in the time it took, he passed away. And so, but his sister did create a foundation that was largely funded by the work that Trent did. And it was totally under the radar. Reznor didn't make a big deal about it. He didn't no self-congratulation. But I found out about it, wrote him a couple of times. We never really corresponded about it. But, just the idea that he saw that, he realized that he had the potential to, to take action and do something.
Platform.
I mean, the work that I'm doing with Blanket the Homeless, and with the many local musicians who've donated their time and talent, has really, really deeply moved me. And so, even if I didn't respect Trent Reznor as much as I do as a producer, I would want to work with him just so I would have the opportunity to get in his face and say, that thing you did, that mattered so much to me, but that on top of the fact that he's an unbelievable producer. I mean, both in terms of the stuff he does just as a rock and roll guy and what he does, scoring films and all of the other stuff he does. I mean, his sensibilities are so spot on. I'd kill to work with him.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the Blanket the Homeless is a great thing you do. So I got to give salutes to that as well. But yeah, he's great. I honestly did not know how many hands he has in different cookie jars, because I found out. So we watched, my partner and I were watching Soul, the Disney movie. I didn't know he did. I didn't know he did the sounds for that, which I think is just nuts. And then I think he also did, I'm not sure, I'm sure you're familiar with the artist Halsey, but he did her most recent record, and I thought that's he's just all over the place.
Do a deep dive. There's so many movies that he's
I'm sure,
responsible for scoring or has done, little pieces. There's a lot of Netflix stuff out there that, they're always calling on him for that, because he just has that, kind of orchestral sensibility, that ability to, kind of create sound beds that are just perfect complements to whatever the emotional texture is in a scene. And, that to me as a producer, is far more important than whether, they figure out the right sound on the guitar, this and the other. It's really about saying, okay, what's the emotional landscape we're working in, and what is it you're trying to convey? And quite honestly, the next album that I'm working on, when I went to my producer, I said, I want you to listen to Echo, the Nine Inch Nails tune. Just, this kind of in your face, rapid fire, rhythm track that he's got going, and then this really kind of almost gentle, vocal line that's kind of cascading around it. So it's still got that pulsing drive, but he's telling the story over it. And, and then the dynamic shifts. And so that's kind of the direction I want to go with this next album. It's going to be pretty different than anything in the, it's definitely not going to be kind of 90s rock. It's going to definitely be a different kind of feel altogether.
There we go. Well, guys, if you want to hear Trent Reznor and Ken Newman together, you go on Twitter, You tag both of them.
Start praying now.
Listen, I'm all about the manifestation, Ken.
Brandon, if that shit happens, I'm building a church in your name. So.
Well, I appreciate it. Listen, I'm all about manifestation here. If you can
Good.
build it, people will come. So hopefully Ken Newman and Trent will be doing something soon. But the next question I have for you, Ken, obviously you're very multi-talented. You play guitar, you do vocals, you act, you do magic, all this sort of stuff. But if there was another musical instrument you could master, what would you like to add to your arsenal?
Well, I actually managed to get by okay on piano, largely because I understand how chords are constructed, so I could do that. But I would really, really love to do it, I had the opportunity and I should have taken it to do a deeper dive into piano. But if I were to pick up something right now, and I have one in the other room, I would really want to get good on saxophone.
Ooh, nice. All right.
Really, really, it's always been a really thrilling instrument for me. I wanted to play it in my high school band, but they didn't. At the last minute, they ran out of saxophones, and they said, "We think you'll like French horn." And as much as I appreciate what the French horn can do, I mean, it's a beautiful instrument, and I think about Stravinsky's Rite of Spring and how great it sounds there. I was so short that I couldn't hold the damn instrument without dragging it on the ground to get to and from my house. So, I mean, that was one of the reasons that I decided to give it up, was just the fact that it was too unwieldy.
Fair enough.
I have a feeling that if I picked up saxophone in high school, I probably would have stuck with it, and I think it would have become a part of what I did. I mean, I picked one up. I got the book. I was using it for a video that I was doing where I wanted to look like I was playing, but I didn't. So I thought, I'm going to buy a saxophone and some entry-level sax and just use it as an excuse to start taking lessons. Yeah. So I've got the lesson book, I've got the saxophone, and now all I have to do is invest the time in it. Or have somebody knock on the door and say, "Hi, Bob's House of Saxophone Lessons. Somebody just paid, and you have to do this.
You have to, yeah.
You will be punished. We don't want to talk about the punishment, but twice a week I will be here for an hour at a time, and you're going to start practicing. That's almost the way I have to do everything. I have to have a deadline, or I have to have the threat of physical violence."
Yeah, I understand that.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for full contact saxophone. I need to really lay into.
You need someone to just.
You're gonna learn this, son of a bitch.
Quick to whip out. Somebody's got to crack the whip out in order for you to do. I got you. I feel that.
I'm gonna choke you on a reed.
Oh. Well, I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't go that intense. But I feel it.
It's gonna. What the hell? I mean, I'm gonna have time because I'm gonna kind of dial back some of my corporate work pretty soon. So this might be the opportunity to do that. I'll take it on vacation with me, and I'll break it in.
There we go. Next time we have Ken on, he's going to be a master saxophone player. So
exactly.
Looking forward to it.
It'll give me a little while before you have me back.
We'll give you a deadline.
Thank you.
The next question I have for you, Ken, I've had people on that obviously would be probably similar to my parents' age, and obviously you have a son. I'm curious what your son thinks about your music, because very similarly, probably how do I explain it to my parents, and saying like I interview people. How is your son taking kind of your obviously getting back into music, because I'm sure it's very interesting for him to have your dad be into music as vigorously as you are.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. So, when I started playing, I would invite him occasionally to come to, like, when I was with the cover band, and he, it's funny, he would get embarrassed about like so many kids are embarrassed of their dad. If you're up on stage and you're posturing too much or you're really digging in too much, it's like, oh God, that's my dad, But I remember I was playing at this club in North Beach in San Francisco, and I looked, and I told them that I was playing, and I looked out, and they would open the windows and the doors so that people could hear.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of people would just congregate on the sidewalk listening to it instead of coming into the bar. And I could see him back there for a while, and I didn't want to make a big deal about it, so I just kept on playing. And then suddenly he was gone, and I think I got a text from him, a text. He said, "Dad, I'd stop by and listen to you. You guys really kick ass. It was great." And I'm like, okay, that's the best review I could have gotten.
Yeah.
And then I remember, when I the song that I wrote about his friend that had passed away, and I didn't really want him to hear it right away because I knew he was very young when it happened. He was 15.
Sure.
And but I did want him to hear it, and I waited for a while until he was maybe 17 or so, and I played it for him. I think by that point, I don't think it was. I might have recorded it already, and I played a recording of it. and he was really moved by it. He said, "Dad, that's really, really beautiful." And it was, I could tell he was. He almost couldn't talk about it, but he said it's really, really great. And then I remember when I got the mastered version back before the test pressing, I burned a CD and we sat in the car and he listened to it. He said, and he was really, really complimentary. He said it's really wonderful. But just recently, he said something to me, and he'll die if he hears this. But he said, Dad, he said, I have to tell you, I really love, your voice is incredible and your playing is incredible, but I wish you would do more covers. And I'm like, all right, why exactly? He goes, well, your songs are really, really good, but, and he used an expression that I know he heard from his mom. She's a novelist and a very successful one and a brilliant writer. And at one point she said to me, she says, a number of your songs are really kind of on the nose. And on the nose is an expression that she uses and other writers use. It's when it's not, it's like the difference between subtext and dialogue. It's where you're actually saying, this is the thing that I'm saying. There's not a lot of poetry or gloss to it, right? And some of the songs, like, I Can't Breathe is really a transcription of Eric Garner's last words. And it's, and even We Should Do This Again, which is the song I wrote about homelessness, is really a combination of different things that people told me,
Yeah.
And so there is a simplicity to the language that isn't true in like Danny or some of the other songs. But, I think to his point, it's like everything is not only on the nose, but also a bit of a downer. In fact, it's honestly the case. Somebody once joked, when he heard the album for the first time, he said, how much Xanax is going to come with when you release it?
Oh
are you going to put like little packets and stuff it in the inner sleeve? Maybe you should retitle it, You're Going to Need a Lot of Drinks, so it was. I mean, it was largely, one song is Nothing to See Here, which is about how immune we've become or numb we've become to gun violence. The first verse is about somebody gets shot on the street. The second verse is about a murder-suicide in a house. Third verse is about a school shooting. I Can't Breathe, we know what that's about. We Should Do This Again is about homelessness. Dreaming of Guns is about sexual abuse and nightmares. I mean, it's not exactly a walk in the park. The lightest hearted song is about getting out of a psycho relationship. I suppose lighter than that is about kind of a little bit of a dig at social media, which ironically has become a much sweeter song since so many people use social media exclusively during the pandemic. But to his point, and God bless my son. I mean, he's nothing if not the most honest son of a bitch I've ever known in my life. He's 27 years old. He doesn't mince words, and he said, look, I don't mean to hurt your feelings because I think you're a great performer. And I said, so you'd be happy if my next album was not quite as depressing? He goes, yeah, that. So, I mean, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, I don't know that my album is going to be the kind of thing that somebody's going to listen to 50 times in a row because it makes them feel so good. It might make them want to do something, maybe commit themselves to some kind of political action or whatever, and that's fine, but it's not an easy listening album. So, his statements have been helpful, complimentary, and always honest. He's a great kid, and I love the fuck out of him, frankly. And he's just, and he calls me on shit all the time, and you gotta love that. Only people who love you that much will do that for you.
Certainly. I feel that, because your son and I are a very similar age bracket. I'm 29, so you're right
within the same
in the same wheelhouse there. But I feel like there's an importance to having songs that are very on the nose and very because there's sometimes you can have those songs that are just kind of a little bit flowery, a little bit you kind of play to the strengths of writing certain things in a certain way because you're like, okay, well, I don't want people to know that that's directed at something or someone particularly, and I understand that certainly. But then there's also songs that I feel like you gotta, this is the nail, this is the board, you just gotta lay it in there, unfortunately. And so I respect that about your music, and just kind of going through it was that I feel like it's very on the nose, obviously. And there are going to be times where there are albums that are a little bit more harder to digest, but I feel like they're just as important to have as much as there are important to have a top 40s pop record, because people need to say what they need to say, and it's good to have that voice. Otherwise what's the point in writing music, right?
Yep, you got it.
So
There are people that like I've mentioned Jeff Tweedy before, who can write things that are deeply moving and deeply affecting, but he's got this incredible facility for finding really quirky, unusual ways of saying things. That
yeah.
like, I mean, as one of his songs starts off with, "The ashtray said you were up all night."
Yeah.
And the image of that is like, oh, right, an ashtray filled with cigarette butts. And that's,
Is
as
that what
opposed to just saying I was up all night smoking,
Yeah.
right? He found a way to kind of massage the language and come up with something that's just so evocative immediately, that still conveys a clear point. And I think that's something that's something that I will strive for as I grow as a songwriter, because, ironically at my advanced age, I am kind of a newbie at it. I really have only been writing for about 6 years. So I'm learning as quickly as I can, and, and very often under fire. I mean, I'm actually crazy enough just to try to write something in front of a live audience. I've done that. I mean,
Oh wow.
I'm going to make this up as I go along. And I did it. I was at an outdoor show and I just started to make something up. And, about a month later, I had a song out of it called "It'll All Be Over Soon," because I just started riffing on this crazy guitar chord and I just started making stuff up, and I figured, well, there's not that many people listening, so let's see what I can get away with.
That's very similar to how I do it here, honestly, because people are like, do you have questions up? And I'm like, nah, you just let it go. We just do our thing. That's it. See how it rides. But the next question
is perfectly fine.
The next question I have for you, Ken, if you were to compile a dream tour lineup, including yourself, who would you love to go on tour with?
Oh Lord, I'd have to bring Tom Petty back from the grave and Prince. There are a lot of people. There are some people that I know locally. That is a guy named Sam Chase, who's an incredible singer songwriter, rock guy. I would love to tour with him. I would probably love to tour with 68 and the Cold Stairs, from what you told me. I mean, right now I've actually contacted a promoter who's listened to my music, and she's looking at trying to get me some dates in the UK, in Amsterdam, and possibly in Dublin, with bands that are, that just sort of have a similar feel or a similar kind of edge or dynamic or whatever. So it's I probably would look at bands like Rage Against the Machine, bands like even oh God, who am I thinking of? I mean, think people that bands that really do kind of like have a lot to say about where we are as a society,
political,
how I think that would be really, really fun for me, because it would just be, I feel like I would have an audience of people that were there to kind of hear that kind of stuff, and I would love to go on the road with Bob Mould.
Oh,
Bob Mould is somebody I've gotten to know over the years. He and I played a bit together during the early days of something called Be Robin. It was kind of the thing that led to my starting Blanket the Homeless. Margaret Cho is a comedian, and she did a program in San Francisco called Be Robin to honor her friend Robin Williams. And we were doing some shows on the street, and Bob Mould lives in San Francisco part of the year, and he happened to show up, and I had no idea he lived there, lived in the city. And so we did a little bit together, and I've gotten to see him with his 3-piece band, Jason Arducci and John Worster, and then also his solo electric stuff. And I've always loved Husker Du and Sugar. And he's on a solo electric tour now. And, I don't quite have the nerve to say, hey, take me along. I just kind of like put some of my music out there for him to listen to. And if some point he thought, yeah, that's got the right kind of feel or the right sensibility, he's someone I would just be thrilled to tour with. So if I had to pick one, I would say Bob.
Very good. Well, Bob, if you're watching this, Ken wants to tour with you. I'm personally saying it, so Ken doesn't have to, but you guys should do it. That would be very cool. I'd be down. The next question I have for you, Ken, I know we talked about Metallica and seeing them, but are there any other artists that put on a great live performance in terms of the bands that you've seen?
Yeah, Wilco is probably still my favorite live band. They just always manage to surprise me. I mean, what they did with Yankee Hotel Foxtrot when that came out, where they took this kind of alt country with a punk thing to it, and then they totally deconstructed it, so much so that the record label wouldn't even release the album.
Yeah.
They said it's not what we signed on for, and then finally they took it back and said okay, and they released it on None Such, and then Rolling Stone made it album of the year, so it was like neener neener, but
yeah,
they are right up there with some of the best concerts I've ever seen. Bob Mould, again, one of the best, unbelievable shows that I saw. Richard Thompson from Fairport Convention, his solo stuff is incredible. His band stuff is incredible. Another great concert I saw. I saw Soul Asylum. They blew me out of my seat. And I just saw a concert that I didn't expect to knock me out as much as I did. I just saw X, this old school punk, from the day, and John Doe's band. Saw them at the Independent, a pretty small venue, and that was absolutely incendiary. It was a great, great show. Again, I really, really miss seeing Tom Petty. And of course, having seen Prince, I can tell you that was something just I still amazes me, how his musicianship, everything that he did, brilliant on guitar and piano, everything he picked up, he just excelled at. And an incredible stage show. I mean, if I had to pick one, if somebody said, okay, you can go see one concert tomorrow, I'd have to say it would probably be Wilco again, just because they've got a new album out. I can't remember the name of it. Cruel America, Cruel something like that. Yeah, and I'm dying to see that tour.
I think it is. I just Googled it. It is Cruel Country.
Cruel Country, yeah. I'm really excited about that. I mean, I know he's been writing for a while, and him and the band is just incredible. I mean, the musicians are all top notch, and they just have this beautiful relationship with each other. They absolutely love each other. They have a real sense of an extended family. I just saw Jeff with his two sons doing a solo tour. His
cool.
tour with Spencer, Tweety, and Sam, his brother, and it was incredible. They were just amazing, just an amazing band. You just feel the love on stage. And that incredible musicianship and storytelling. And, plus I just got my turntable, so I got to buy 2 albums when I was there. So anybody that brings vinyl to the merch table, I'm in trouble.
It's over.
A lot of vinyl. I'm going to buy all the vinyl. So
I listen, you're speaking to my soul, Ken. I'm very much the same way. I'm like, I just saw this instrumental math rock band called Covet. Shouts to them. Love them.
Oh wow, cool.
But they're great. They're a 3-piece band from California, actually.
Give me that name again. What is it?
Covet, Covet. They're great.
All right, something else to check out. Yeah, considering our backgrounds and our music taste, I'm going to listen to anything you tell me. So.
There we go. Well,
I'll be doing a deep dive on 3 of them then.
Feel free to hit me up, Ken. I always have something brewing or whatever. So
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you're exposed to a lot of great stuff.
But I went to go see them last Friday, not this past Friday, like 2 Fridays ago. Yeah. And I was like, I haven't picked up their latest record. I don't know. I was just maybe an idiot and forgot to buy it, or I just didn't have money at the time. And so I went. I was like, oh, well, if they have it at the merch table, I'll buy it, right? Just so happens they happen to have it at the merch table. I'm like, shit. Well, I guess I gotta buy it because I already said I was gonna do it. So I'm a man of my word. So I went and bought it.
The thing is, I will never regret a vinyl I bought ever.
Same. I've always thought, if I see the band live, I really enjoyed them. Why not, support them? A and B, obviously, who doesn't love adding more stuff to their collection? So, I mean,
people, good for you.
But the next question I have for you, Ken, another fun one: favorite TV show, favorite movie? What's your go-tos?
Well, I would have to say Breaking Bad was one of the best things I've ever seen on television. I could actually, I binge watched it because I didn't ever get through the whole thing when it started. And man, what a binge watch that was. It was like seeing a dozen or so feature films and loving every single one of them, knowing I could watch it again. I mean, brilliant writing, brilliant acting, incredible story arc, character development that I mean, to see somebody go from what he was to what he became. It's what every artist, every writer, every songwriter, everybody aspires to, that kind of just arc,
trajectory,
like that trajectory. And it was just absolutely brilliant. God, so many movies, and I've had the opportunity to be an actor, so there's a lot. I mean, I'm watching now Succession, And
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's brutal. It is
Yeah.
brutal. I have to take like a psychic shower after every episode. It's just, oh my God, these people are just so unctuous. I don't even know how to deal with it. But I mean, again, there's just some of the stuff that's on television right now. I mean, Netflix series and whatnot. I cannot get over the quality of the work.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it truly, truly is. I mean, there are movies that, you know, growing up. I mean, I saw a movie. It's a French film called The King of Hearts, that was just beautiful, beautiful, romantic, you know, lovely, lovely film about, you know, about sanity, I suppose.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I always, always loved that movie. It was always one of my favorite films. I could still, if it was on, I'd watch it right now. You know, I could watch Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 1,000 times, reciting every bit of dialogue all the way through, you know, and not once say, I think I'll give it a pass this time. Inevitably, if it's on, I always hope it's 2/3 of the way through, because otherwise I'm in for 3.5 hours, you know.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. I can't get away from it.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a similar feeling about, you know, Blade Runner. There's a ton of movies that they strike some kind of a chord in me, and I can't, you know, even 2001: A Space Odyssey, even though it's got that long section where you either want to be tripping or asleep because it's just kind of gone on for so long. But not that I do that, mind you. But you know, that's another one. And you know, the thing about The Godfather too is I always say, well, what about, you know, pick a desert island movie? I said, well, I would pick The Godfather for a variety of reasons, not the least of which it's 3.5 hours long. So you get a lot of like value.
Yeah.
If you only have one damn movie, it's not over in an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, you got a lot. You know? And if you're lucky enough to be able to pull off the Godfather saga, you get to take the whole thing with you, and you could just sort of like breeze through Godfather 3, which was a complete mess. But you know, whatever. You know, at least there's at least a couple of good scenes in it. But you know, I'd have to say that is one of my go-tos. Although there's a new movie out that I haven't seen it yet. Everything, Everywhere, All in One, whatever it is.
That looks great. That looks awesome.
I really want to see it in the movie theater, and I haven't been able to do that. But that's one I have a feeling is going to be a desert island film, from what everybody tells me. You know, they say it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I recently watched a YouTube video of them kind of going through some of the special effects that they did, and it was just like very like basic things, but like somehow they were able to just kind of like do it in a way where like it just seemed like a whole like blockbuster team had done the special effects for this movie. And I was like, the practical elements of some of the stuff they do was just nuts. So I gotta give props. That's it.
You know, having been somebody that studied film when I was in college, I mean, I was, you know, always taken by a lot of, you know, 100 Blows, a lot of Truffaut's films and whatnot. But we did a really deep dive into Citizen Kane, and I just got to watch it again recently. And I mean, when you think about how revolutionary, there were so many things that were done that had never been done before with deep focus and camera angles, and you know, it really was a remarkable achievement, and it really does hold up. I mean, it's just a stunning piece of work. So, you know, that's another one that I would have to say I could watch it 1,000 times and never see all of it.
There we go. Ken, funnily enough, you mentioned desert island, so I figured this is the perfect segue. If you were trapped on a desert island for the next month and there was one album you could bring with you, what would it be?
Oh, baby. Oh, God. Okay, this is going to be really weird because it's not just because it's a triple album, but in part because I haven't heard it in a long time.
Fair enough.
And it hits a period of time that is so important to me. It would be Woodstock.
Wow. All right. Interesting.
I would take Woodstock just because it would give me the chance to hear like Tom, you know, the Who at their absolute peak, you know, with like, you know, it would Crosby, Stills and Nash, Santana. I mean, if you haven't listened to it start to finish or haven't watched the movie, there were just, I mean, Alvin Lee in 10 years after doing this kind of like master class on blues guitar. I mean, literally going from one song to another to another.
Yeah.
Know, tripping balls. He was stoned out of his friggin' mind. The fact that he could actually play was incredible. Jimi Hendrix, you know, just, you know, doing the Star Spangled Banner. You know, there were some performances that were, you know, I mean, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Young wouldn't appear. Crosby on the in the film or on the album. but Crosby, Stills, and Nash doing Sweet Judy Blue Eyes for the first time in front of an audience and kind of like not quite nailing all the harmonies and stuff, being scared to death. I mean, the thing about it, I think, aside from the fact that I get 3 pieces of vinyl, so again, it's an entertainment value.
Bang for your buck, yeah.
I'm going to be stuck on that godforsaken island. You know, I could just say, all right, for the first, how long was I there? A month?
Month. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So in the first 10 days, I got that album. Second 10 days, second album. 10 days, third album. But you know, there's Jefferson Airplane on there doing Volunteers. There's Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah.
You know, I Want to Take You Higher. And God knows there were so many bands that never even got. You know, I mean, I think the Dead were there. I don't think they're on the. I know they're not on the album. I'm trying to figure out who else was there. But Joe Cocker does an unbelievable performance on that one. Richie Havens, who I got to meet, you know, several times, does a couple of beautiful tunes, Handsome Johnny and Freedom. Yeah, there's some just great stuff on there. So I would have to say that, yeah. In fact, that's an album I really want to buy. I haven't found it anywhere yet. I know I could get it on Amazon if I'm willing to pay a fortune for it, but I'd rather get it with a few scratches just to make it feel real.
You gotta have. I got you. Yeah, it's gotta feel authentic, right?
Yeah, let it skip once or twice during the Hendrix guitar solo. That'll be all right.
You gotta know it's authentic.
I know I'm showing my age with that one. A lot of you listeners are gonna be like, Woodstock? Oh, okay.
I know what you're talking about very much so, because again, just growing up in classic rock,
oh sure, yeah, your dad will appreciate it. Just tell your dad I said Woodstock.
Yeah, he's probably gonna watch this and be like, I really like Ken Newman. Not only that, because my dad's name's also Ken as well. So there we go.
Oh my God! All right, well there we go.
Funnily enough. The next question, Ken, kind of to round this out, the entire interview, I've been doing this most recently in terms of the interviews I've done recently. But for people who maybe still might be on the fence for whatever reason, I don't know why, but you should go check out Ken Newman. But what do you want people to take away from your music, whether it be from a musical perspective? And I know you write really, you know, obviously heartfelt lyrics. What do you want people to take away from your music? Because I feel like that's important thing to, you know, obviously discuss and talk about.
You know, I'll tell you the truth, and it's going to sound weird, but I mean, you know, as any artist, I've got a relatively delicate ego, you know, and it's funny. I mean, I've acted most of my life, and I've done a lot of comedy, and, you know, I've gotten pretty good at magic. And if somebody says something like, oh, I didn't really like this, I didn't really like that, I don't take it too much to heart. Sure. With music, because it's a relatively new thing, it's kind of like, oh, ow. But that's where we learn from. And it's one of the reasons that I'm really, you know, anxious for people to hear this, because I want them to feel like they can write me and they could say, hey, I really love this song, but I think it could have used a little bit more of blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
In fact, recently, I had somebody listen to the album and they said, you know, the songs are wonderful. The lyrics are wonderful. Your singing is wonderful, but I feel like your singing was, two people said this. I feel like your singing was constrained. I feel like you were put in a box a little bit. Like you were told, don't push too hard. Don't oversell it. Don't go to your vocal extreme. Don't run the risk of, you know, don't get too raspy. Don't get blow it out, whatever. You know, and it's obviously not something that I impose on myself when I'm singing live. You know, I might not quite hit the note or something, but emotion is behind it. And that was a valuable criticism. It's something I want to think about when I go into the studio again. Say, hey, look, you know, I'll talk to my producer or whatever producer I'm working with. Say, look, I want you to not create the container that you think is right. I want you to push me to a container that might be outside of my comfort zone and make it right.
Fair, yeah.
Make it work within the context of what we're trying to do in the song. So, you know, my feeling would be, you know, I encourage anybody out there to like listen to it on Spotify, listen to it on vinyl if you want to invest in the album. Know that the money's going to go to support the charity that I'm doing to support the homeless population in San Francisco, hopefully elsewhere. We're going to try to take this national, you know, and try to support homeless populations around the country.
Very nice.
I would encourage, you know, and it's a beautiful album. It's, you know, I'm really proud of what we've done with that, as well as Blanket the Homeless. There's some great songs on Blanket the Homeless that I had nothing to do with other than the fact that I curated it, you know, along with my producer. And there's some beautiful writing and performing on it. But in terms of my own album, I would encourage everybody, give it a listen and don't hesitate at all to track me down, write me, and play critic. Just say, hey, I really love this, but I didn't like that so much, or that song seemed a little weak, and here's why I think it was, or this would have been better if there was another verse, or whatever. It doesn't mean I'm going to go like, yes, and I'm going to absolutely do that the next time, but I want to know what people think.
Sure.
I don't just have a sugar-coated version of it when somebody is paid to write me a good review. So that's honest as I can be.
No, certainly. And I, implore the fans to go check it out and go give your honest opinion to Ken. Like, I'll go listen to it and I'll give you my honest opinion on it too as well.
Cool.
But I feel like, kind of similarly to how I do interviews, I always expect people to kind of let me know how I'm doing. So, it's kind of the same thing where,
well, I can tell you, having been interviewed a lot in my life and having interviewed other people, and I produced documentaries and I've done things for big projects. You are damn good at this.
Oh, thank you.
You really are. I mean, better than most people I've been interviewed by.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate the compliment. Always striving to do the best that I can do, with the channel. I've been doing this shit for 6 years, and I don't really plan on stop doing it.
It shows. You really have a gift for it.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Ken. Well, I want to give the floor to you because you did mention you were going to do some magic, and, I'm a fan of some magic here.
I don't know if I got this right, but this thing that I've been working on, and it's essentially just 3 cards. I hope you can see them pretty clearly.
I can, yes.
3 red back cards, and one of them is a 10 of spades. The other one is a 3 of diamonds, and the third of them is a 10 of clubs. And I'll put the 3 of diamonds between the 2 10s, and you can see that, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, we would call the 3 the money card, in that case, not because it's the most valuable, but because it's the different one. It's the red one. And if I were to take that card out, which to be this one, right? That's the one in the middle.
The middle,
And I take it, I put it here, and I showed you the other 2 cards, which are just the 2 10s, and I got those right there and then dropped them on the table. This then would be the 3 of diamonds, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't understand what happened, because when I took it out of that was on the back.
What? Oh my God.
Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, that's my logo.
That's your logo?
Yeah, that's my logo.
I'll be a son of a gun. I have no idea how that happened. I took him out of the bag. I just took him out of the bag, and just 3 cards. I don't know.
Oh my God. I've never been so I've never been so visually upset. That's great. Oh my God, that was so
good.
Cool.
That's exactly what I strive for.
I'm gonna definitely clip this and put it some. That's so cool.
Just to screw with your poor brain. That's what I'm here for. That's what.
I don't have any more questions for you, Ken. The last thing I have to ask you, thanks for coming on, obviously. Tell the people where they can find you on social media, what you have coming up. Tell the people where they can buy the records, obviously, things of that nature.
Probably the best thing to do is just, you got my name. It's Ken Newman, KenNewman music.com. Just rebuilt the website, and there's a lot of good stuff there. You can buy the album. You can, if you go to the bottom of the page, there's all the little social media links. You'll find me down there. On the shows, I think it's called shows now. Page will be everything that I have coming up. It's such a new site. I haven't really spent much time looking at it, but I've got some really cool things coming up. I'm going to be, some private events there's a big trade show in San Francisco called RSA, and a company brought me in to do a couple 3 hours of music. I'm going to be playing at a fundraiser event this coming weekend for the San Francisco Public Library. That's going to be down the Harvey Milk. Where is it? Saturday? Saturday the 7th? I think it is.
I think you're correct. Yeah.
No, that's not it. Stable Cafe. That's going to be something else I'm doing. Gosh, it's going to be a really exciting couple of days.
You're finding out just as much as I'm finding out.
Yeah, well, really, I have to do that on that day? Oh, I'm screwed. I'm not ready for that one. Then I've got some really fun stuff later in the month. I'm going to be doing that's why I'm looking at the wrong month. That's the confusion here. Hold on a second. Pay no attention to this man behind the curtain. I am the all-powerful. Here it is. At the end of June, actually, I'm going to be up at B.R. Cohn Winery in Sonoma. For anybody that happens to be in that part of the world, they do a B.R. Cohn are the people that do Bottle Rock. If you know Bottle Rock, that's a huge concert here in Northern California. B.R. Cohn, Mr. Cohn himself was the Doobie Brothers manager, and he started this festival many years back. And they do a smaller festival called the Summer Concert Series, And I've been invited for the second year now to do a couple of dates there. The first one is Sunday, June 26th. I play for a couple hours starting at 12 till about 2:30. Me and my drummer will be up there rocking out. I'm going to be part of a music festival in Portland coming up. Those dates are still to be determined, and then another festival in San Francisco. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. It'll all be on the website. So I encourage you to check me out there. It's easier to look there, and you'll find Spotify and Facebook and everything else. You know how that social media stuff works. If I started giving you every stupid link that I've got, we'll be here until Y3K. So,
well, anyway, if you want to go check out Ken Newman, all of the links will be in the description.
And why would you not? I mean, look at how much fun I am. I'll do a trick for you. What the hell?
He did do a magic trick for us. So, I mean, listen,
thank you.
That was a first for me. So I was very flabbergasted. So I really appreciate it.
I've had so much fun. I've had to go to the bathroom for 45 minutes, and I wouldn't even start getting up.
Well, I'll keep it brief. Huge thanks to Angela over at Muddy Paw. Always appreciate her support. She gives me some of the best artists I could ever imagine. So
I adore that woman. We've been working together now for a couple of months with another month, and I cannot sing her praises loudly enough. She's a true gift to the music community. I agree with you.
I agree. But guys, go check out Ken Newman. All of the links will be in the description to go find out about him on social media. Hopefully we'll be making it out to the East Coast very soon. So we'll keep my fingers crossed. And if you enjoyed this interview, share it, like, and subscribe. It goes a long way. I really do appreciate it.
Please, Brandon Zagorski, man, just all I can tell you is like, look at that. Look at that, and let that consider getting that as a tattoo, because this guy's killing.
I'm already considering doing that. So huge thanks to Ken for coming on, and thanks for talking with me, Ken. I appreciate it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, man. I hope we stay in touch.
We will.
All right, my friend. Take care.